From the Big Three Miami Heat to the Nikola Jokic-led Denver Nuggets, today we're going to be ranking the last 10 NBA finals to see which ones were all-time great, mid, or even in some cases bad. Before we rank these final series, we have to lay down some ground rules. The metric I'll be using is entertainment value, difficulty of the ring, dialogue of the series, and of course the moments that define the series. Without further ado, let's rank the last 10 NBA finals. Number 10, the 2017-18 Golden State Warriors. Part 4 of the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers was the least enjoyable out of the four, as LeBron James and the Cavs never stood a chance. Golden State were tested in the West playoffs by the Spurs, who would take a game, but then a certain play would happen to the Spurs star and leader Kawhi Leonard and would sideline him for the rest of the series, leading the Warriors to sweep from there. Houston would push Golden State to a 7th game, but due to a really bad time to hit a shooting slump, the Rockets would famously miss 27 three-pointers in a row in the deciding game, sending Golden State back to the finals. Cleveland were lucky to even make it to the finals, as Kyrie Irving would lead to join the Boston Celtics as the Cavs finished with a 50-32 record, giving them the 4th seed. The Pacers and the Celtics would push the Cleveland Cavaliers to 7 games, as the Pacers' young star Victor Oladipo would stand up to LeBron in a valiant effort, but it wasn't enough to dethrone the king. While the Boston Celtics were an all-round better team than Cleveland, LeBron miraculously pushed past the Boston Celtics, averaging 33.6 points, 9 rebounds, 8.4 assists, 1.1 blocks on 52.4% shooting. Coming into the finals, the Warriors had the 3rd best offense in the NBA, while the Cavs had the 29th worst defense, which made for a sweep. LeBron clearly did not want to be swept, as in Game 1 he exploded for 51 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and a block on 59.4% shooting, but would lose the game due to the worst brain fade in league history when J.R. Smith tried to run down the clock, even though the game was tied. After that moment, the game went to overtime where the Cavs ran out of juice, and it was their only real chance to take a game from Golden State in the series, as the Warriors comfortably won the last 3. Durant would hit a pull-up jumper from the same spot as he had hit one from the previous season, but the hype for this series wasn't very high, and for that reason, this finals was the worst of the last 10 finals. Number 9, the 2016-17 Golden State Warriors. Cleveland versus Golden State Part 3 was here, and LeBron and Curry would face off yet again. However, this time the equation was very different, as the newly signed Kevin Durant would provide a huge boost for Golden State, as we were left to ask the question yet again, can LeBron overcome this seemingly impossible task? As Golden State added more power, the Cavs lost that defensive intensity, as Coach Ty Lue decided to go all offense, leading to the 3rd best offense in the NBA while having the 20th worst defense. For Golden State, the defense was elite, ranking 2nd, led by Defensive Player of the Year Draymond Green, while the offense led by Curry and Durant was just elite. Cleveland would lose the first 2 games on the road and kept Game 3 close, but would still lose by 5 points. The only way for Cleveland to win a game was to outscore the 2nd best defense in the NBA. Cleveland would pull through in Game 4, scoring 137 points to avoid the sweep, but Game 5 saw Golden State celebrating on their home court for the first time, as Durant would deservingly win the finals MVP. For me, the storyline of the finals was very mid. Yes, the rematch rivalry makes for a good story, but in the fashion that Kevin Durant left OKC when he was up 3-1 on them the season prior, will forever not have my respect, as it completely ruined what he had with OKC and Russell Westbrook, and what LeBron and Curry had in 2016. For me, not as bad as a sweep, but it is right here. Number 8, the 2022-23 Denver Nuggets. In the finals just gone, nobody expected the Miami Heat to make it all the way to the finals. However, the Denver Nuggets being there was not a shock to anyone, as the Nuggets were clearly the best team in the Western Conference during the playoffs. Denver beat Minnesota comfortably in 5 games in the first round, and then would beat the Phoenix Suns in 6 games, while going on to sweep the Lakers in the conference finals. All the while, Nikola Jokic was averaging near triple-double stats. Miami came into the playoffs through the play-in tournament, as in the first game of the play-in tournament, they would lose to the Atlanta Hawks on their home court. But in the second game, they would beat the Chicago Bulls, even though they were down by 10 points late in the 4th. The Miami Heat would play the 1-seeded Milwaukee Bucks, who had clearly been the most dominant team in the East, as the Bucks had notched a winning streak of 16 straight games during the regular season. However, Milwaukee was dealing with injuries, as Chris Middleton was dealing with knee problems, and within the first 5 minutes of Game 1, Giannis would suffer a season-ending injury as he took a hard fall on his back. Miami would go on to win the series in 5 games, toppling the number 1 seed. Then in the second round, they would beat the New York Knicks in 6 games, but most shocking of all, found themselves up 3 games to nothing on the Boston Celtics. However, the Celtics pushed them to a 7th game, winning 3 straight games of their own, trying to make history as the first team to ever come back from a 3-0 deficit, but the mentally strained Boston Celtics would fall in Game 7 on their home court, as Jason Tatum would roll his ankle in the opening possession of the ball game. After all of this that the Miami Heat had gone through, the Denver Nuggets were waiting for them. Miami, led by head coach Eric Spoelstra and star players Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, struggled in Game 1, as the offense was a real problem for the Heat, as they would go down 93-104, and most thought it would be a clean sweep from here. However, Game 2 in Denver showed the basketball world why they weren't able to count out the Miami Heat, as in a hard-fought game, the Heat would win by just 3 points, as a step-back 3 by Jamal Murray at the buzzer would miss. Games 3, 4, and 5 just didn't feel very close. However, Jimmy Butler in the 5th game would score 11 straight points late in the game to try and send it back to Miami, but Jokic and the Nuggets were clearly the best team in the league, and a late turnover by Jimmy Butler would seal the deal as the Nuggets won their first title in franchise history. For me, the 8 seed versus the 1 seed in the NBA Finals was never going to be a spectacle, but it was a better series than we thought. Number 7, the 2018-19 Toronto Raptors. Toronto versus Golden State in 2019 was supposed to be a clean sweep as the Warriors were the clear best team looking for a three-peat. Golden State had just swept the Portland Trailblazers in the West Finals, making them the heavy favorite. With 4 All-Stars on one team, Golden State was top-heavy, while the opponent was stacked, with talent having Kawhi Leonard, MIP Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, newly traded for Marc Gasol, and others. Toronto would finally make the NBA Finals as LeBron would leave the Eastern Conference to join the Lakers in the off-season prior, ending the LeBronto era, but to say they had an easy path would be dead wrong. After beating the Orlando Magic in the first round in 5 games, Toronto would face Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Jimmy Butler, led Philadelphia Sixers, who would push them to a 7th game where the Raptors star Kawhi Leonard would hit the most clutch shot in the history of the NBA at the buzzer, the only buzzer beater in Game 7 history. Just when Toronto thought it was going to be over, a young dominant Milwaukee Bucks team who had only lost 1 game on the way to the East Finals would take the first 2 games in Milwaukee to lead the series 2-0. Just as you thought the Raptors were dead and buried, they won the next 4 games to reverse sweep the Bucks thanks to the infamous strategy, the wall, helping them contain Giannis Antetokounmpo. In the finals, injury doubts over Kevin Durant, who was injured in Game 6 versus the Houston Rockets, and DeMarcus Cousins, who had been out since the first round, and of course Klay Thompson's injury in the finals itself made a top-heavy team without depth tested at that spot. While the Raptors star Kawhi Leonard had dominated the Eastern Conference, averaging 32 points per game while flirting with 50-40-90 shooting splits during the playoffs. With all of that in mind, we were in for a very competitive series as it was the Splash Bros taking on the North. And out of the gate, it didn't disappoint, as in Game 1, Marc Gasol, Pascal Siakam, and Kawhi Leonard combined for 75 of the Raptors' 118 points as they dominated the short-handed Warriors, who were starting Jordan Bell and the 36-year-old Andre Iguodala, where DeMarcus Cousins and Kevin Durant would have been. In Game 2, Golden State were able to tie up the series, with Klay and Steph combining for 48 points, and the Raptors were struggling offensively, while Klay Thompson would sustain a leg injury, making an already short-handed team with even more problems. In Game 3 at Golden State, the Raptors' offensive struggle seemed like a distant memory as the entire starting 5 scored at least 17 points in a dominant display, beating the Warriors 123-109. While that went down, Curry was forced to carry the Warriors on offense, scoring 47 points and hitting 6 threes in the effort as they were forced to abandon the strength in numbers mantra that they were praised for years back, as injuries took away their star players, making Curry have to do everything. Ironically, very similar to LeBron James in the 2015 finals, missing Kyrie and Kevin Love. Game 4 comes around as Klay Thompson would be back in the lineup, but another loss that would put down 3 games to 1. Kawhi Leonard would drop 36 points while Serge Ibaka would score 20 off the bench, again showing how good offensively the Raptors were. With Golden State now down 3-1, drastic measures had to be taken as they took a gamble on the health of Kevin Durant, and it didn't pay off as only 11 minutes into the game he would tear his Achilles tendon, missing over a year due to the decision. Kevin Durant had played his last game in Golden State. However, Golden State would pull out the win in Game 5, but the injuries weren't done yet as Klay Thompson would suffer an ACL after a dunk attempt that would sideline him for up to 2 years. While Golden State were down to bench players in the rotation, Toronto were fully healthy as 4 starters scored more than 20 points. However, Golden State kept it close and a go-ahead 3 in the dying seconds by Curry was missed, and the NBA champions were headed north. Kawhi Leonard was awarded the Finals MVP, but really for me, injuries made the series a bleak affair, and in the end, there was no doubt that the Raptors were a great team, but we all know a fully healthy matchup would have been a different story. Number 6, the 2013-14 San Antonio Spurs. Going into the 2013-14 NBA Finals, yet again we found a series headlined by the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs, as the Spurs were looking to avenge the loss of the season prior. On one hand, you've got the Miami Heat super team on the way out as Dwayne Wade's health was starting to linger, and the same was said for Chris Bosh. On the other hand, you've got an old Tim Duncan and a mighty powerful San Antonio Spurs dynasty that had been so dominant over the last 2 decades. Adding to that, a young upcoming superstar in Kawhi Leonard who would spend most of the series guarding LeBron James and doing a very good job at it too. Dwayne Wade was clearly starting to slow as he wasn't averaging his usual numbers, while LeBron James was suffering chronic cramps during the finals, having to sit out in crucial moments. The Spurs offense was clicking as they were shooting over 50% from the field as a team throughout the whole series and 46% from 3. With everything said, the difference in power was noticeable as San Antonio Spurs would win Game 1 by 15 points, with the team shooting 13 from 25 from 3. In Game 2, LeBron James dominated the San Antonio Spurs with a 35-point double-double, taking Game 2, tying up the series. However, by the time Game 3 rolled around, it was clear that the San Antonio Spurs had figured out the Miami Heat's game plan and beat them in 3 straight games as the young Kawhi Leonard would win the Finals MVP, stopping the Miami Heat from a three-peat. For me, the Miami Heat were definitely on their last legs, and LeBron James could see that, and in the offseason, he would move back to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Definitely not a bad series by any stretch of the imagination, but not an all-time great series, so this is where it lands for me. Number 5, the 2019-20 Los Angeles Lakers. When we talk about the 2020 NBA Finals, we have to mention the conditions of which it was played in, as the bubble was set up due to the spread of the coronavirus, as there were no crowds, meaning no home or away games, making making it basically an open gym. The finals was headlined by LeBron James and Anthony Davis's Los Angeles Lakers and the grit and grind Miami Heat led by Jimmy Butler. As from the outset, it looked like the Lakers were the clear favourites as LeBron James was still in the prime of his career and putting up near triple-double every single night, while Anthony Davis was in his first season with the Lakers and averaging a 28-point double-double. But of course, we can't forget about the deep bench of talent that the Lakers had, including Danny Green, Rajon Rondo, and others like Alex Caruso, to provide the Lakers the third best defense in the NBA. The Miami Heat finished the regular season as the 5th seed and quite literally had to prove themselves on the court every single night, as they swept the 4th-seeded Indiana Pacers in the first round, beat an injury-prone Milwaukee Bucks in the second round, and the Boston Celtics in a Game 6 thriller. In Game 1, the Miami Heat would sustain injuries to Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic, opening the paint up for the Lakers as Bam Adebayo is one of the best interior defenders in the NBA. This left Myers Leonard and Kelly Olynyk to deal with AD, so as you can imagine, Anthony Davis went off for 32 points in Game 2 due to that. Even with the Miami Heat down 2-0, Game 3 brought us Jimmy Butler's best performance of his career, as he carried the Heat to a win as he finished with a 40-point triple-double, winning the game by 9 points, while at the same time neutralizing AD and keeping him to only 15 points in the game. All that had to fall on the Heat's favor to even just win a game. So as you could imagine, in Game 4, LeBron and the Lakers would win by 6 points, even with the return of a healthy Bam Adebayo. This set everything up for Game 5, where it was highly expected that LeBron James would clinch his title and put the nail in the coffin. However, with a 40-point performance from LeBron, the Miami Heat would not go away as they shot 50% from 3 in Game 5 and won in a thriller. With the series now at 3-2, the Lakers needed to win Game 6, and they did in an anticlimactic fashion as the Heat never led the game and the Lakers would win by 7, as LeBron James would win the Finals MVP and his 4th title. Many people would say this Finals series was not as good as others because of the circumstances, but for me, I'm not putting that into account in this video. The players were just playing with what they had, and it would be unfair to say that the Finals series is worse just because of where it's played. Number 4, the 2021-22 Golden State Warriors. In 2022, the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors would face off in the NBA Finals, a highly anticipated finals as the Warriors were back in the finals after not being there for the last 2 seasons. Stephen Curry arguably having the best season in his career, while in Boston, the trio of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart were a gritty and grindy unit coming out of 2 Game 7s against the number 1 seeded Miami Heat and the 3-seeded Milwaukee Bucks. Golden State had played an injury-riddled Denver Nuggets in the first round and would win in 5 games. The second round brought a familiar foe in the Memphis Grizzlies, who would lose their star player Ja Morant, but would still put up a great fight, losing in 6. In the conference finals, they were expected to play the 60-win Phoenix Suns led by Devin Booker and Chris Paul. However, a huge upset in Game 7 where Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks beat down the Suns, meaning Golden State had a different opponent. The Mavericks were a good team but not a great team, as during the West playoffs, Golden State never looked like they were being tested. The Boston Celtics, however, were a real test for the Golden State Warriors on offense and defense, as both sides were good on both sides of the ball. In Game 1, Stephen Curry exploded in the first quarter for 25 points. However, Boston stayed in the fight and lit it up from 3 in the 4th quarter to take Game 1 in Golden State. Game 2 was a different story as the Warriors would fight back, winning 107-88, and it was topped off by a ridiculous half-court buzzer beater at the half by Jordan Poole, who had been a huge contributor for them during the playoffs, along with great defense on Jason Tatum by Andrew Wiggins. At this point, the series was a pinnacle of a back and forth, as in Game 3, the Celtics had 3 players who scored more than 20 points, as they comfortably won 116-100. Game 4 was by far the best game of the series, and the opinion of Stephen Curry himself, it was the best game of his career. Across 41 minutes, Curry dropped 43 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists while shooting 53.8% from the field, as Golden State tied the series as they won 107-97. The Celtics looked like they were shook from Curry's performance in Game 4, as the Warriors dominated Game 5 and 6, and Stephen Curry would finally win his Finals MVP, which silenced a lot of critics. The Warriors were champions yet again, but this time they were the good guys. Number 3, the 2014-15 Golden State Warriors. It's the first year of a 4-year rivalry which would dominate the decade. It's Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors versus LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. With it being the first season back in Cleveland for LeBron, he was looking to act upon his promise to bring Cleveland an NBA title. The Golden State Warriors had finally made it to the NBA Finals as they had finished building their title contender, as Stephen Curry now had a squad consisting of Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and other key players like Andrew Bogut and Andre Iguodala. While Cleveland whacked together a title contending team in the first season of LeBron's return, they traded away the first overall pick, Andrew Wiggins, to bring in Kevin Love to pair with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. With this new Cleveland team, they were able to stomp all over the Eastern Conference during the regular season and in the playoffs. However, in the first round, Kevin Love would be sidelined due to an arm injury and would not return for the rest of the season. In Game 1 of the Finals, LeBron James had a masterclass as he scored 44 points, dominating the game. However, neither team could pull away as it went to overtime. However, for Cleveland, overtime was highlighted by the young point guard Kyrie Irving, who would injure his ankle on a drive during the overtime as Golden State would take Game 1. People were wondering if the series was already over for Cleveland. However, people forgot to realize at this point that LeBron James was used to these situations, as in Game 2, LeBron would go off for 39 points, 16 rebounds, and 11 assists in another overtime overtime game, where this time it would be a victory. At this point, people were starting to come to the realization that LeBron James could potentially have one of the best NBA Finals series in the history of the league. As in Game 3, LeBron would have another incredible game as the King dropped 40 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists, as Cleveland would go to win 96-91 in a nail-biter to lead the series 2-1. LeBron James had been completely dominating the series, and the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr, knew he had to make a move, and make a move he did, as veteran Andre Iguodala would take the place of Andrew Bogut and switch Draymond Green to center. With this mobile lineup, LeBron James and the Cavaliers struggled mightily, especially LeBron, who only shot 39% from the field for the rest of the series. Golden State would win 3 straight games and win the first championship of the dynasty to come. This championship was for sure one of the better titles of the decade, but not the best out of this rivalry. Number 2, the 2020-2021 Milwaukee Bucks. Coming into this final series, many people didn't give the Milwaukee Bucks a chance to upset the Phoenix Suns. However, the Bucks swept the Miami Heat in the first round, who had beaten them the season prior in the bubble, but they struggled mightily against the Brooklyn Nets in the second round as they pulled out a Game 7 victory in overtime. After Kevin Durant appeared to have won the game, but on closer analysis, his foot was barely on the line. Meanwhile, out west, a key injury to the Clippers star Kawhi Leonard led to a collapse of the Clippers as the Suns made it to the NBA Finals, led by an up-and-coming star Devin Booker and a longtime veteran Chris Paul. The second-seeded Suns' ball movement was mesmerizing as the point guard orchestrated the offense, as the team had shooters all over the floor, with Devin Booker, Jay Crowder, and Mikal Bridges. With the NBA Finals finally here, there was a lot of narrative, as in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals, Giannis would go down with a serious knee injury. However, not even a week later, Giannis was suiting up for Game 1 of the Finals, after the Bucks had beaten the Hawks with a stellar performance from Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday in Games 5 and 6. Other storylines was that it was Chris Paul's first NBA Finals game, and it was 2 small market teams who had rebuilt, which was a nice change of pace for the league. The Milwaukee Bucks hadn't won the championship in 50 years, while the Phoenix Suns had never won one, so whoever was going to win the title, it would be making NBA history. In Game 1 of the NBA Finals, CP3 and Devin Booker put on a masterclass, as Phoenix took advantage of the 7-footer Brook Lopez and continued to put him in the high pick and roll. Even with this dominance, it was clear that Giannis seemed to be unshaken, as in Game 2, Giannis would go off for 40 points in a loss. It was clear that if the Bucks were going to win this series, role players like Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday were going to have to stand up. Milwaukee coach Mike Budenholzer made critical adjustments heading into Game 3, taking minutes away from Brook Lopez and instead playing a small ball lineup with Giannis at the 5, which worked tremendously, as Chris Paul and Devin Booker combined for 29 points, as the Bucks blew out the Phoenix Suns by 20 in Game 3. Game 4 was shaping up to be the most important game of the series, and Devin Booker knew that, as a return to form game for Booker saw him score 42 points. However, the Bucks were rolling and there was no stopping them this time, especially in the clutch, as one of the best defensive plays in NBA history would take place, as a lob between Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton was broken up by Giannis in an incredible play to save Game 4 and tie up the series. And let's not forget that Chris Middleton had 40 points in this game to help Giannis to a Game 4 W. Coming into Game 5, the narrative was still in the favor of the Phoenix Suns, but it was switching a little bit, as now people were jumping on the Bucks bandwagon. A tight game saw the Milwaukee Bucks break away in the 4th quarter. However, it wasn't over yet, as the Phoenix Suns rallied to cut it to a 1-point game with only a minute remaining. And with the Suns in possession, Drew Holiday would make a clutch play, stealing the ball away from Devin Booker and throwing an incredible alley-oop to Giannis. The media narrative had now completely shifted heading into Game 6. However, credit to the Phoenix Suns, after a tough start in Game 6, they rallied back to lead at the half. However, Giannis was in his bag that night and ended with 50 points in one of the greatest performances in league history, as he ran away with the Finals MVP, and the Bucks won their first championship in 50 years. For me, this championship was a change of pace that the NBA desperately needed, and it was very entertaining. Number 1, the 2015-16 Cleveland Cavaliers. The 2016 NBA Finals is arguably the greatest NBA Finals series in league history, as it was the rematch of the season prior. The Cleveland Cavaliers, led by LeBron James, were finally healthy, as Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving would join LeBron and try and take down the Splash Bros, who were the reigning champions. For the Warriors, they had made history of they had won 73 games during the regular season, eclipsing the 72-win season of the 1996 Chicago Bulls, led by Michael Jordan. Many believed that if Golden State could win the title, they would be the greatest team in NBA history. Stephen Curry would also win the first ever unanimous MVP. Meanwhile, the fully healthy Cleveland Cavaliers stood in their path and were dying to avenge their loss of the season prior, as they finally had a fair matchup. In Games 1 and 2, Golden State showed why they were a 73-win team, as they overwhelmed the Cavaliers and blew them out in both games. In the first game back in Cleveland, in Game 3, the series switched up as the Cavs blew out Golden State in convincing fashion, while LeBron James and Kyrie Irving both had 30 points. Golden State, however, were able to bounce back in Game 4 behind a 38-point Curry masterclass, and it appeared that the series was over. However, the NBA was about to witness the greatest 3-game stretch in league history. But before we could get to that, there was a controversy, as Draymond Green would be suspended for Game 5 as he was over the technical foul limit, leaving the Warriors to start Harrison Barnes in his place, while LeBron and Kyrie Irving both scored 31 points in Game 5 and sent the series back to Cleveland for Game 6. The Warriors were feeling the pressure coming into into Game 6, and it all boiled over for Stephen Curry late in the fourth quarter as he threw his mouthpiece into the crowd and got ejected. While the Cavaliers continued to click all over the court, LeBron James finished with 41 points and overwhelmed Golden State. However, with back-to-back games filled with controversy, it was time to settle it in Game 7. The Warriors' Draymond Green returned, and the stakes were the highest they've ever been, as the Warriors wanted a championship to cap off their 73-win season, and the Cavaliers were trying to make history as the first team to ever come back from being down 3-1 in the NBA Finals. Game 7 was a tight back-and-forth slugfest. However, the style of game suited Draymond Green as he hit his first 5 3-point makes. However, Cleveland kept it close due to the great performances of LeBron and Kyrie. Down the stretch of the fourth quarter, the Warriors and the Cavs were tied at 89 apiece. But Kyrie missed a layup on one end, and it looked like the Warriors were going to score when LeBron James made the greatest defensive play in the history of the NBA as he made a chase-down block on Andre Iguodala. 10 minutes later, Kyrie Irving hit one of the most clutch shots in the history of the league over Stephen Curry to win the tight grueling Game 7 and make history. For me, this is a definite top 3 NBA Finals in the history of the league, and for this decade, it's the best Finals we have seen. This video took a lot longer to make than other videos, so make sure to hit the like if you haven't already, and let us know if you agree with the ranking below.